Before I talk about the Mixably Open online course, I want to talk a little bit about the use of open materials as it currently stands. And I think that there are some misconceptions about this. For instance, I think this is the way that people that talk about OER often present it. You know, I have this class, second class of the week. It's a 1.5 hour class. It's on in this case, let's say it's on statistical confounding, right? It's on controlling for variables and things like that. So I go out and I find, look, there's a PowerPoint over here from an OpenCourseWare course that is on statistical confounding. There is I find a video from a company called Boston Analytics, a decent YouTube that has a really good explanation, and I throw that in, and that's about 15 minutes. There's an activity online. Someone's posted an activity online, so I throw that in there. And it's a 45-minute activity, and the students are going to do that. And then there's also, luckily, there's a Khan Academy thing on the subject too, where students can get the precise way to do the mathematics of controlling for a variable. And so that's great too, right? So, and I throw these all together, and look. We have 1.5 hours here, and so that's amazing, right? Open education has saved the day. Except anybody that's actually tried to do this knows that that's not how it works at all. The actual experience of this is so distant from what open education people often present that I think people that actually try to use these materials get very frustrated because, look, this Boston Analytics video, right? They just dropped in here, this 15-minute video, okay? I had to watch dozens of videos to find this video and make sure that the video I chose actually served the learning goals of my particular class, that it was clear, right, that it was using similar terminology as we were, and if it wasn't using the terminology, figure out ways to help clarify that. I had to figure out the parts I was going to skip. I can't use the whole video because parts of the video talk about things we haven't even covered yet, right? So I got to figure out, okay, I'm going to skip from here to here, and we're going to jump and make notes on that. And I'm going to have to drop that into an LMS or course blog. If you're using a course blog with an explanation, that's going to take 15 minutes. By the time I'm done, this thing I've just dropped in here has taken me 4.5 hours to prep into the course. It doesn't get better, right? So if we're looking at the PowerPoint, this 30-minute PowerPoint I'm going to walk through, right? Okay, great. It took me a couple hours to find this particular PowerPoint. Trying to find a PowerPoint that actually addresses at a level that's fit for my students and actually deals with the sorts of focuses that we're dealing with in the class. I had to read it and edit it, right? And by reading and editing, I had to go through and figure out, I have this PowerPoint, but it has no notes. I have to go through and I have to get the notes. I have to take out the things that don't apply to what we're doing, put in things that maybe apply to what we're doing, change terminology. I've got to decide, there's some slides that make no sense. I've got slides in here that have diagrams. I have to, what the heck is this slide trying to say? I have to do some research on that. And we're using clickers in my class, right? So I'm going to have to add in some clicker questions. And by the time I'm done just dropping this PowerPoint in, it's 5 hours. With the Khan Academy video, we get lucky, and we could get very unlucky with Khan Academy, but I'm trying to represent that in any given thing, one of the things you'll get lucky with, we find a Khan Academy video maybe that's perfectly suited to what we need to do, but we've got to watch that whole video end to end to make sure that it's doing what we think it's doing, and so that we can talk about it with the students if they have a question. We probably want to make some notes on it about what it does and what we might have to tell students before they watch it in terms of how it relates to what we're doing in the class. I mean, we certainly can't tell students to watch it without having some idea of what's in there. And then we're going to put it on the blog or the LMS. We're going to give an explanation. We're going to have to type up what the students should take away from it, that sort of thing. That's going to take 10 minutes, so there's about 30 minutes for that. Then we have this activity here that I found is a great activity. We're pretty lucky with this. It only took us 45 minutes to find that activity, which if you've looked for open resources, you know you're pretty quick if you can find an open resource in 45 minutes. Reformatting it took 30 minutes. We were lucky this time. If it had been in a PDF, it would have taken over an hour to put this thing back together. Luckily, this person had it in Word, and so we just had to do some minor reformatting to get it up either in the LMS or on the blog. We had to change some of the terminology. A lot of it actually referenced stuff that class that had used the thing had actually done before. So we're going to have to remove all that stuff from it and make it and kind of clean it up, make sure it's not talking about, as you noticed from 4 weeks ago, when of course we didn't even have a class 4 weeks ago, because they've done it in a different order. They've done their stuff in a different order than us, and we're going to have to make sure that also we tend to use the term common cause. When we're talking about a certain set of things, they tend to use other terminology. So we're going to have to deal with that. And then there's this big question mark here about integration into summative assessments, right? So all this stuff we're doing, right, is ultimately going to be assessed in some sort of summative assessment. So we need to come up, not necessarily right now, but we're going to have to revisit all this stuff that we tied together in this class day and figure out how we're going about assessing that in some of the summative assessments for the term. So this just drop everything in. These open materials that supposedly saved us so much time. Maybe not so much, right? Because if we actually look at it in terms of integration cost, the integration cost of this is something like 11 hours. And if you think that these estimates, these time estimates are out of whack, then I would really encourage you to go into a classroom and try to teach using a variety of open materials, in a subject where your particular presentation of the materials is maybe not exact. We're in a subject where the actual course is not narrowly circumscribed in terms of the way people deliver that across multiple institutions. But in terms of, you have a course that actually has some differences in the way it's presented from between you and the way someone else might. So I would encourage you, if you think these estimates are out of whack, to go and teach a course and try to use open materials for it. It is a pain. And when you look at this 10 hours in 45 minutes, this idea that modularity is saving us time seems a little ridiculous. That what usually happens here is people do attempt to do this. They do attempt to use those open materials. But at a certain point, they look at all the time they are spent tweaking, reformatting, tying one material to another material, writing assessments for materials that don't have assessments, figuring out what skip points should be in the video and how they can actually find videos that tie to the actual reading being done, and how they can use actual materials that reference reading from books that students don't have. When you pull all of that together, the integration cost of this really does exceed what it might take you to actually produce something from scratch. And so this is the big sort of hidden story. You see, why are people not using OER? Why are people not using OER? And people say, well, I can't find it, or I'm worried about the quality, or my subject is different than other subjects, or so on and so forth. But at the heart of all of this is this idea of integration costs. That is, any individual thing might be okay on its own, but when you try to pull it into some sort of coherent experience for the students, the process of banging out all this stuff together is very expensive in terms of time. And so what I'm going to talk about next time when I talk about the Mixably Open MOOC, the Mixably Open Online Course, is this issue. And what I think is going to happen as we move forward is that open educational resources are going to have to be larger, and they're going to have to be more integrated. They're not the idea that they're going to be small pieces, or a syllabus that's provided, or even a set of lectures that has no online assessment tied to it. is going to go away, because I think we're starting to realize that the real time cost here ends up being this integration cost. So we're going to want end-to-end OER solutions, open online courses that include and tie together all the readings that use a common set of vocabulary for concepts that students are learning, that are sequenced in a way that makes sense, where all this stuff where you're looking out to see, hey, does this video reference stuff that we haven't covered yet? All that stuff is already done. But in order to have that sort of work done, it's going to have to be a larger thing. It's going to essentially have to be something that is kind of course-sized, where somebody has sat down and tied together a bunch of materials and checked all this stuff for you, so that instead of coming here and doing, I'm doing this on the fly, so this may be a bad way to demonstrate this, but here's what I'm thinking, is instead of going here and dropping all this stuff in, right, you're going to have a sequence of modules, right, that are going to be like you know, class 1 on the online stuff for class 1, you know, and then, you know, class 2. Told you I'm doing this on the fly. You know, and you'll have these all, and they'll all be set up so that class 2 knows what you did in class 1, right? And you're going to come here and you're going to drop class 1 in sort of like this, right? And this piece here is going to be well integrated. And then your thing is to can we get some settings here? No. Your thing is going to be to build this outer piece, right? This is kind of what we're talking about, the wrap thing. So that you start to look like, you start to look at, can we get double select? No, nothing? Man, this is horrible. It's a new tool here. So this will be class 1, and then, you know, your next class will bring in class 2, and what you're going to do is you're going to kind of do those pieces that aren't necessarily about the resources, but are about the talking, or about the conversation, or about the discussion. This piece here is going to be integrated for you, and it's going to work as long as you're using modules from the same sequence. And so this is what we mean when we say open online courses, is kind of delivering on the promise of OpenCourseWare, but being really, really cognizant that the big cost that educators are hitting that is blocking the use of OpenCourseWare and open educational resources is this integration cost, solving the integration cost problem for educators. And so I'll talk next time about the Mixably Open online course, but this is the problem that we're trying to solve.